Dr. Kris Verburgh is a medical doctor and researcher at the Free University of Brussels, where his focus is the aging process, metabolism, and nutrition. He published his first book when he was 16, and his latest is The Longevity Code. Dr. Verburgh is a co-founder of NOVOS Labs and is a partner and head of science at the Longevity Vision Fund. With that, let me start the interview. Hello, Dr. Verburgh. You are the co-founder and chief scientific officer of NOVOS Labs, as well as a partner in the Longevity Vision Fund, one of the biggest funds investing in longevity. So thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you on our channel.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, Dr. Verburgh, can you talk a little bit about why you started in research on aging in the first place? Why is this your topic?
Yeah, well, since a young age, I've been fascinated by why we age and have to die eventually. So aging is the biggest cause of death, of course. And it's a fascinating process. So what happens in the body during aging? It not just explains why sooner or later we have to leave this planet, but also it explains most of the diseases people will eventually get, like heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, cancer. The root cause of all these diseases is aging. It's our aging processes. So as a medical student, I quickly realized that the best way to study how you can keep people healthy for the longest time possible is by looking at the root cause of most diseases we will get, and that's aging. And also, I love complex problems, and I think aging is a very complex problem. And I love great challenges, and I love trying to look into ways how we can move forward civilization and make mankind and this planet a better place. And I think aging and treating diseases and keeping people healthy for as long as possible is a very big challenge. And that's my fascination. Yes.
Actually, some other people who've been on our channel have a very similar journey. It's like, well, I was curing diseases, but then I figured that actually aging is the major cause, so I should just cure aging. So you co-founded NOVOS Labs with Kris. Can you talk a little bit about why you founded NOVOS Labs?
Yeah, well, I look in all kinds of ways to live a longer, healthier life. And so one of the aspects is looking at the latest biotechnologies and pharmaceutical treatments to extend healthy lifespan and so on. But I also quickly realized that actually all these treatments, they will still take a long time to be developed. And they will be mainly developed or approved to treat specific diseases, unfortunately. And so there's nothing really out there to try to mitigate aging. Because aging is not let's say, it's not even a healthy disease indication. So that's why, that's why I'm also very interested in, let's say, a more preventative approach by looking at nutraceuticals or supplements and foods. Actually, the best technology we currently have to live longer is the food we eat, is nutrition, and of course, supplementation and so on. And that's why I became very interested in what kinds of ingredients are there in our foods, in supplements that have the best science behind them, in the sense that they can extend lifespan and act on fundamental aging mechanisms. So that's why we created NOVOS. It's a nutraceutical company. It will also offer other things like testing and so on to see how fast you're aging and so on. But and that's why we created NOVOS. And I think another reason why we created this company is we were very frustrated by the fact that there are so little science-based nutraceutical or supplement companies out there to target aging. A lot of anti-aging supplements still are based on outdated insights and mechanisms, like that antioxidants slow down aging. Unfortunately, most antioxidants don't really slow down aging, and the very little antioxidants that have some science behind them that they can extend lifespan, it's mainly not due to their antioxidant effect. It's due to that they can lower inflammation or slow down protein accumulation or have epigenetic effects and so on. So out of this frustration that there are so little science-based anti-aging supplements out there, we created NOVOS. And the nice thing about a nutraceutical also compared to a drug is that you can use combinations. You can put multiple ingredients in one nutraceutical, while if you go down the classical pharma route, you can only use mostly one ingredient, one drug for one target. And that is also something that bothers me, because aging is a very complex process. There are many reasons why we age: epigenetic dysregulation, mitochondrial dysfunction, accumulation of proteins, splicing problems, microbiome changes, and so on and so on. So one drug that will treat only one tiny aspect of this whole cascade of bad events that lead to aging or mechanisms is not really going to make a big dent in the aging process. And that's also why we see why a lot of drugs don't really treat diseases very well. A lot of drugs are symptomatic treatments, like the antihypertensive drugs. They just open up your blood vessels, they dilate your blood vessels so your blood pressure goes down, but they do not treat the fundamental cause of hypertension, which are things like cross-linking or epigenetic changes in the blood vessel cells, and many other accumulation of proteins in the blood vessel walls and so on. Most drugs do not target those fundamental causes, but with a nutraceutical, you can use combinations that synergistically target multiple pathways or mechanisms of aging in order to have a higher chance or likelihood to really make an impact in the aging process. I always compare it with a house that is wearing down. If you only try to fix the leaky gutter and you do not fix the broken windows or the flooded basement or the leaky roof or the crumbling walls, fixing only the gutter is not likely going to make a big impact in slowing down the dilapidation of the house. Because you need to fix everything and at the same time, or at least a lot of things. And that's currently what pharma is doing. And it's just trying to fix the gutter and all the other things, they are not addressed. So with a nutraceutical, you can use a combination of different ingredients. And I think that's very powerful. And I think also the treatment for aging or of the future will be a combination of different interventions, or at least different drugs and so on. So that's one advantage you have with nutraceuticals, and why we also went down that route. And another, finally, there are many reasons, but I will just stop there. The last reason is there are a lot of very interesting natural substances out there already discovered with a lot of good science behind them, in the sense that they can extend lifespan in multiple species and that they are associated with reduced mortality in humans, and that they can act on fundamental aging pathways. But nothing is done with those natural substances because they cannot be patented. So pharma ignores them, despite all the great independent science behind them, because interestingly, the studies were not funded also by the same company that wants to bring it to market. The studies are done by scientists with no real, let's say, monetary incentive, because it's just freely available, that specific substance. But nothing's done with it because you cannot patent it. So why should you spend dozens of millions of dollars in clinical trials to bring it to market if everyone can bring it to market, despite there are already a lot of great scientific studies and data behind those natural formulations or ingredients. So we looked into identifying the most interesting ones together with our scientific advisory board, and that's why we created NOVOS.
So one of them, so actually not part of NOVOS core, but you have NOVOS Boost, right, which is an NAD precursor, NMN. So can you talk a little bit about why you chose NMN as opposed to any of the other NAD precursors?
Yes, that's a great question. So we were actually, before we made that choice, we were completely agnostic at which NAD booster we would use: NR, NMN, niacin, nicotinamide. We just looked into what would work best. So we looked into the science, and we stuck with the NMN for several reasons. Of course, the two most well-known NAD boosters are NR, nicotinamide riboside, and NMN. NR and NMN, they are very interesting. We think that NMN is better for several reasons, at least as the science stands now, because NMN has a phosphate group, and we think compared to NR, and we believe that the phosphate group is very important for stability, for absorption, and so on. The problem with NR is if you take it orally, a lot of it is already broken down in the gut before absorption systemically. And so we believe that NMN is more stable, and it's also a great way to boost NAD levels. There also has been discussion as to, can you take it up? Can cells take it up? A few years ago, there was an NMN transporter discovered. Very likely there are more of these transporters we still need to discover. But we see actually if you give NMN in drinking water to animals or to humans, we see substantial improvements in all kinds of biomarkers of aging. And that means whatever happens with the NMN in the body, it seems to have an interesting physiological effect in the end. If you give it to mice, they age less fast, their eyesight declines less fast, their stamina improves considerably, their blood flow, brain cells and brain function, and let's say blood flow in the brain improves if you give NMN orally in their drinking water. And in humans, we have recently seen clinical trials where you give NMN to a woman with pre-diabetes and obesity, and it improves their some metabolic biomarkers of insulin resistance. We also see it improves metabolic function in elderly men if you give NMN orally. And we also see, for example, that a lot of companies, biotech companies that want to develop drugs to treat aging-related diseases are basing themselves on an NMN backbone. So they create a little variation of the NMN molecule, and they're not basing themselves on the NR backbone of the molecule. So yeah, we think NMN is an interesting molecule. And for example, Professor David Sinclair, he takes NMN, he doesn't take NR. And other, let's say, specialists in the field we have spoken to, they all prefer NMN. So yeah, that's interesting. And NASA and the US military are experimenting with NMN, not NR. So I think these are all, let's say, interesting signs that probably NMN is better than NR. But we, of course, we are a company that's continuously looking at the latest science. So if that should change, and even if better NMN molecules come out, we will implement that changes. So nothing is written in stones, and we are very, let's say, open-minded to new insights. And even about NMN, that can be further improved because you have different versions of NMN. You have more, let's say, crystalline NMN, which seems to be more stable and better absorbed and so on. And that's actually the kind of NMN we also use compared to more classical NMN that's still very available on the market. It's less crystalline. So the way the NMN molecules are stacked together, it's less organized. So it leads to less stability for the NMN and so on. So even with the same NMN molecule, you can still vary and look at more interesting, let's say, versions that improve stability or absorption and so on. So that's in a nutshell why we prefer NMN.
If